Welcome to the next section of this course, Knowing Your Friends, the Delphi RTL. Don't reinvent the wheel. Many programmers ignore what the big Delphi RTL can offer them. Some old-time Delphi lovers continue to write the code like they wrote years ago. The new language features and a better attention to the community let Embarcadero add many useful classes in the Delphi RTL, and if you don't know them well, risk to reinvent the wheel or simply write inefficient code because you don't have the time to write the correct one. But often, the correct one is just in the RTL. To minimize such risks, in this section, we'll introduce some new or lesser-known RTL classes. The section will demonstrate the following topics: check strings with regular expressions, using native HTTPS client libraries for RESTful services, using system.net encodings, using system.zip and publish-subscribe mechanism. So let's begin with the first video of this section, check settings with regular expressions. In this video, we will learn how to check strings with regular expressions. A regular expression, regx, is a sequence of characters that forms a search pattern where some characters have a special meaning. It is mainly used to match patterns on strings. A simple case is something like this. Check whether string A matches the criteria defined in string B. Regular expressions follow a specific language to define the criteria. Regular expressions are not present only in Delphi. Many languages have a regular expression library in their standard built-in library. So, if you don't know what a regular expression is, you can read the general documentation at this site. Then, check the Delphi-specific built-in implementation at this website. With regular expressions, perhaps you'll need an external tool to test the most complex ones. Just like you want to test a complex query using a database tool instead of changing the SQL in your code over and over again. There are a lot of sites offering this type of tool. One of the most complete websites offering such tools is available at regx101.com. This video contains a small complete project with specific objectives. It contains a list of checks that could be daunting to code from scratch but are trivial using regular expressions. Just one thing to remember. You always require a regx string and an input string to check, and the regx library gives back the result of the match. In this case, the result is true or false. Here are some samples of very simple regular expressions with some input strings as a test. In the last column, you can see the result of the match using the isMatch method. Regx can be used to perform smart string replaces as well in order to find another strings and so on. But the concept is the same as the check. You only need to call the right method as isMatch, split, matches, and so on to give the right meaning to the regx. Now we'll see how to do it. Open the project called regx.dproj in the IDE and check the code of the form. The test application will be like this, which has some checks on it. Here, each button checks the value written to the edit at its left. The checks don't test the real validity of the data inserted. They only check the format validity. For example, if the email address is formally valid, the check returns true even if the address doesn't really exist. In Delphi, the needed classes and records to work with regular expressions are contained in the system.regularexpressions.pas unit and follow the standard of the regular expression as handled by the Perl language, one of the first languages that started to use regx. The unit is included in the implementation section of the form. I suggest putting all your validation code in a separated unit in some testable validator types. However, in this video, the validation code is in the form under the event handler. Please do not do this in your production software. Let's start from the IP check. Under the btn check IP button, you can see the code which is highlighted here. The code is really simple, only the regx needs some more explanation. The regular expression checks a string that starts with 1, 2, or 3 numbers from 0 to 9, which is highlighted here. Then expects a point. Consider that point character in the regx syntax means any character, so if you simply want to check a point, you have to escape the character. This is the reason why in the regular expressions there is a / before the point. Bracket / is used to escape the successive character. Regx continues with the same pattern repeated 4 times for the 4 octets contained in the IPv4 address. The last pattern doesn't expect a point. In this case, this regex is enough, but it also considers an IP such as 999.999.999.999 valid, which is not a valid one. For our needs, it is okay, but for a complete regex to check IPv4 addresses, for that you can read from this link. Using the static tregx.isMatch method, you can easily check whether a string matches a regex. The second check is about the email address. The code used is highlighted here. In this case, the regex is a little bit more complicated. The string must start with at least a letter from A to Z, with a number from 0 to 9, or with a number of the permitted character, like period, underscore, %, plus, minus. The plus sign after the square brackets stands for at least one of. Then there should be an @ sign. After the @ sign, the regex checks for letters, numbers, dots, and the minus sign, the domain part of the address. And as last checks, it looks for 2, 3, or 4 letters, .com, .it, .net, and so on. The regex syntax is case sensitive, but an email address validity check must be case insensitive. So I've put the RO_ignore case modifier on the isMatch to make the regex case insensitive. A to Z is considered as A to Z / lowercase a to Z. As you can see, if you read the regex syntax, you can easily understand what the regex checks. Obviously, there are really complex regexes, so before you use them, be sure to be confident with what you're using. The last button checks the Italian text code, which is highlighted here. I also put this example because the criteria are not so complex, and it is good to understand the regex flexibility. In Italy, there is a tax code called Codice Fiscale that is assigned to all citizens when they reach a certain age. The criteria are 3 letters, 2 numbers, 1 letter, 2 numbers, 1 letter, 3 numbers, 1 letter. So, for instance, this is a formally valid Italian tax code, which is highlighted here. As you see, it is not complex. However, checking it using plain code Delphi can be boring and error-prone. Let's build together the regex to check it. Start with 6 letters, then 2 numbers, then 1 letter and 2 numbers, then 1 letter, 3 numbers, and another 1 letter. Then the code must terminate. Now, the check is really simple. Overall code is highlighted here. After some exercises, you can master the regex syntax, and you'll find it really useful to check and manipulate strings and texts. Now, check the application. This is the sample application while it is checking a wrong email address. As you can see, the regex has identified the wrong email address. Now, check the valid email address, and you can see that it shows the email address is valid. Regex can be used to perform many string-related tasks. You can match strings, search for strings into another string, split a string using a regex as a separator, and so on. If you work with strings, who doesn't? Do yourself a favor and study regular expressions very well. Just as example, suppose you have a string with a list of names separated by or and. Something like Danielle, Bruce, Mark, and Scott. Now you want to retrieve only the names. How can you do this? Here's the regular expression that does the job. To do the actual split, we've to use this code. Remember to check the Delphi documentation about the built-in regex engine syntax at this site. Some nice regex samples, not Delphi related, could be found at this link. As a bonus project, there is a regex tester called regextester.dproj in the attached code that helps you to exploit all the functionalities. Play with it and become a regex ninja. Nice! We've successfully checked strings with regular expressions. In the next video, we'll learn how to use native HTTPS client libraries for RESTful services.